It's Talk Funny, a podcast by Mark Bailey and other comics from all over. We ended up in Japan because we wanted to see people order eggs to go with their eggs. The Talk Funny podcast from Nagoyaradio.com and Nagoyacomedy. Here's Mark Bailey.
Welcome back to another edition of Talk Funny. I'm Mark Bailey. We're here with Mike Miller. This is show number 100, Mike.
Woo! You win.
Do you feel 100?
Yeah. The more I drink, the older I feel.
You were adding it up a few months ago, and a few months ago when you were adding, it was something like 18 hours of material
I think that's what it said on Spreaker. It said 18 hours on the site. So it's amazing to think, it's been, 2 years now since we started the podcast?
We're coming up on our second year anniversary for the podcast. And coming up next month.
Thankfully, I think my parents have not heard it yet, so I'm still in the will.
Oh, that's good, yeah. We can talk about some of the famous people that I've heard. I've tried to contact these people, and they don't write me directly. I've heard Bob Saget is a fan. I've heard
Frank Santo Padre.
I've heard that he listens. I hear this through Logan, and Logan listens. And Barbara Hershey's a friend of my dad's. I've heard that she's liked the show. So we actually have a woman listening.
That's amazing. Just having a woman show up at one of our shows is an event, but having a woman listen to our podcast?
Yeah, a few months ago we had like a girl in the audience, and it changed the whole dynamic.
I know.
Like, I want to go back up again.
That's right.
I want to do mine.
Maybe there's a reason I'm doing this.
She was on her phone. Poor Steve. We're waiting, for her to get back, because she's on her phone talking to her little sister or something. And I'm like, you can talk to your little sister after the show like I'm going to, But we're waiting for her to get back in because all of us we're desperate for female attention.
We are. Let's be honest. There's a reason we do comedy.
I mentioned to you about the Netflix. This is a few months back now, but the Netflix special by Ray Romano?
Yeah, I had a chance to listen to a bit of it.
What did you think about him? It was kind of predictable, Ray.
It was predictable. At first, I was never a huge fan of his, and I was watching it, and I was like, yeah, I can see where this is going. But he had a couple good punchlines, I laughed a little bit.
And he did two shows. He did The Cellar, Caroline's first, and then The Cellar in that special. And the second show, his family was there. And so at the end, this is what I thought. This is comics where I identify with this. At the end, the last 10 minutes... and they're walking to get pizza, and his daughter said, that one bit you did got a bigger laugh than I thought it would. And he's like, well, which bit was it? Was it this bit? She said, no, it was after that. He's like, was it the thing about the dryer? And his wife goes, you put the dryer thing in later, that got a laugh. He's like, oh, the dryer thing got a laugh. And he's like, writing this down. This is an established guy. Everybody loves Ray, and he's still writing, he still needs approval.
Yeah.
And they're eating pizza, and and this is actually not part of his bit. This is just genuine of him. And he keep asking his daughter, see if you can remember the part that got a big laugh. I need to know that. It's like, and it reminds me, Jay Leno used to tell us a joke. Jay Leno would tell comics jokes off stage, and only comics would get them. And one of the jokes that he told was, a comedian does two shows at the same place, an early show and a late show. As he's walking back from the bar where he did the shows, runs into a beautiful buxom blonde. She goes, I saw your show. I thought you were amazing. It just made me want to go to bed with you. It was just the best act I've ever seen. And she goes, do you want my phone number? Do you want to ask me a question or something? And he goes, yeah, did you see the early show or the late show? Because that's important to comics. Which one made you want to go to bed with me? Because I got to do more like that, right? That's what all comics are thinking, We were talking about the John Gotti Social Club that we play sometimes here in Nagoya. The venue owner said something to me. He never complimented me, ever. And he goes, are you going to do that bit about the signing, And I said, not tonight. I'm doing something else. He goes, well, that was good. That wasn't bad. I'm like, wow. I guess is this the end of days now?
Yeah.
Dogs can speak English now. And as they say in Japanese, when English will say, you must have a fever because you were funny today. But in Japanese, they'll say, ame kana. It's probably going to rain because this never happens.
Yeah.
Right. Who are your favorite guests that we've had? Usually we have fellow comics on.
Yeah, I've enjoyed all of the fellow comics. I liked, Steve's episodes and Joe Magic, and Timmy was good as well. And I thought Tofi did a really good job as well.
Yeah, he's a very vibrant personality. It's hard to actually contain his personality into the podcast.
Yeah, he's kind of explosive. He's for good and for bad.
I don't know if he's mentioned it, but he's kind of like not other Arabs in a certain way.
Oh, really?
I don't think he's ever mentioned it before.
I don't know if he has.
Yeah, he was very dynamic. Garrett was one of the first guests that we had on, and he did surprisingly well.
Garrett was very good, too. I enjoyed his.
People don't realize, unless you try to do a podcast, some people are just very boring, and they're not really interesting on the microphone. And we probably should talk about how the thing got started. I think we were bouncing around like, yeah, we should do a podcast, which means Mark should do a podcast. That's what it means.
Because Mark's the guy with the radio skills.
I mean, it just makes sense. If we're going to do it, it needs to be done well. And everybody's doing a podcast, so I might as well try it because I can make it sound better than 99% of them. Because most people, they don't have a mic for each person, and it's just horrible acoustics. They have nothing to talk about. A good example of a very bad podcast is Rich Voss and his wife, My Wife Hates Me.
I haven't heard that one.
Oh, God. They're infamous for how bad the podcast is. They get on, and they don't have anything to say, and they're killing time. It's like, guys, you don't have to kill time on a podcast. You just cut that out. And
That's weird.
And they're doing spots, and they don't like to do the spots. They're like, well, we have to do that. Well, you don't have to, but it's a sponsor, and you promised that you would. I think one of the reasons, this is kind of weird motivation for me, but back a long time ago, we had, what do we call this guy, TCS Dave?
Ah, yes.
And there was a rumor, 52 cards, definitely 52 cards.
Yeah.
And a nice enough guy.
Wapner at 5:30.
Nice enough guy, but his letters are just like, you can read War and Peace twice rather than read one of his memos. And somebody mentioned he was thinking about doing a podcast. Well, if he's going to do a podcast, ours is going to be better if we did one. So we might as well do it. And then he didn't do a podcast. So I did it. And then he moved or something. He gave up. So I did it for nothing.
Yeah, I think I know, Mark, you put a lot of work into the podcast, and I'd like to thank you, on behalf of everybody for putting all the hours in you do, because I know editing takes a lot of time and making sure, and you've got other stuff to do. So, no, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I think I've mentioned before, like in the States, you can do Stamps.com, Shave Club, and all of these monthly subscription services, and you're getting a referral fee. Joe Rogan, all these guys, and they do it out the wazoo. You could actually make some money from that. But for us in Japan, where people don't realize this, I guess, but in the U.S., Japanese income and U.S. income, I have to report the Japanese income even to the U.S., and I usually don't have to pay, but if you don't report it, you're liable for all of it. If they audit you, you're really screwed. Same thing when I go back to the States and I do stand-up. I don't take cash or payment for it. I take barter or these tablets that I get. I just take barter, or one of my friends gets paid, and then
what kind of tablets would that be, sir?
You've never seen these 100 tablets. I bet you thought Netflix was actually filming our last special. Those 10 tablets were actually me. Those were mine.
It's like a 360-degree experience. He's filming it in AR.
But it's just Murphy's Law, because only 3 of them still have power. The other 2 have run out of memory, and because I don't know exactly when I'm going to go on. Another one has fallen behind the counter and is talking to April Cash, and we'll get to who that is
later. And there's
later.
one that always ends up being left at the venue.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to leave one. Yeah, so if we did a podcast and we take remuneration from these sponsors, and you get like a 5 or 7% referral fee, but we might net $84 or something. But that $84, when I report it, I have to get a U.S. accountant that's like $250, $200 an hour. It's just not worth it. And it also puts me over the exemption limit that we have here in Japan, where I would be liable for most of my income, just that extra $84. So it's really not worth it. So we don't really get paid, as I've said before, we get paid by the universe to do these podcasts.
We get paid, it's kind of like The Secret, it's we're putting this out there and putting out positive energy and hoping to get something back. We just keep visualizing money.
And I think the universe...
And eventually the universe will come to us, right?
Like The Secret, if you keep expecting it and asking for it, it'll be there. And we finally got it. A girl came to our show.
That's right.
That's it.
After 2 years and 18 hours of constant editing by Mark.
That's the end of the show. And that's the end of the podcast. Thanks to everyone who has listened to our 100 shows. You can always catch up on these. We also have a Patreon version. If you go to Patreon, you can get special extra attention from us, and you can hear different stories.
Yeah, and we'll have to get on some merch at some point. Now that we're at 100 episodes.
Right. T-shirt says, well, I've been on Talk Funny, so...
Yeah,
that trumps anything you were going to say.
That's right. Well, as seen on Talk Funny.
Well, Gilbert Gottfried interviewed like almost every major star right before they died. Yeah, but he hasn't been on Talk Funny yet.
That's right.
Boy, when Gilbert comes on Talk Funny, he needs to make his will out first.
Yeah, that's it for sure.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back again with another edition of Talk Funny.